Today is November 6th, 2024, and Donald Trump has just won his second term in the White House. I'm not going to pontificate. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm devastated. You're devastated.
I feel like shit.
We've been talking about this for hours, and we just finally started to hit the recording button. And I didn't see this coming. If you've been watching our show, you know that both of us were fairly, I wouldn't say bullish, but confident on a Harris victory. We gave her a 55% chance, 60% chance. We thought she was favored. We did not understand the American electorate, and I think in a lot of the sense we still don't. But I want to focus on the feelings here, and I want to talk about what was your initial reaction to this. Obviously, I was with you throughout the night, so I get that. But what happened when you went home?
Yeah.
And what were the thoughts that were going through your head?
Yeah, I feel like that's so I get home I fall asleep pretty soon after.
Because you were pretty drunk.
I was pretty drunk, and he
was so drunk he left all of his laptops here and his backpack. He's like, "All right, I'm leaving." And I texted him right after, like, "Don't you have work tomorrow? Like, you need your laptop."
So I got here at like 9 a.m. today. But anyways, I got home. It wasn't much thought done that night, but then when I woke up this morning, there was a lot of thought going on, and I'm starting to I'm doing the analysis of okay, what does this actually mean for the country, and what does it mean for my life, and like what kind of changes do I have to make? I've been thinking about like, do I have to move? Do I have to heavily consider that? I'm bouncing between worries about an imminent recession and the descent into fascism and my restrictions on speech, because what if I'm producing media that deems me a political enemy?
Right. He calls the media the enemy of the people all the time. I mean, like, what is the fact that we elected somebody who talks like that about the media is unbelievable to me. But that is what it is. That's what America chose, and we're gonna have to reckon with that.
Well, he's called his political enemies the enemy from within a lot.
The vermin. I'm the vermin, by the way. I mean, when he talks about vermin,
we are the vermin.
We're literally the vermin. Yes. We're the ones crawling around in his brain, taking up all that real estate. Okay.
Yeah.
Like he says explicitly that it's like the Democratic donors. I'm a donor. You're a donor.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the vermin.
Exactly.
So it's scary, but I want to talk about what this means for the idea of America a little bit, because that is one of the reasons that you kind of feel this urge to just dip.
Yes.
Because you're like,
what does the idea
mean to you? What did it mean to you before the election, and what does it mean for you now?
My feeling, okay, the idea of America, I mean, it means a lot. It's really hard to pin down.
I know.
When we try to talk about this. It means opportunity. It means not exactly equality, but it means openness, right? Like the anti-immigration stance is one of the least American things, like the most anti-American value.
Agreed.
It means like come here and be lifted up.
Yes.
And that is exactly what I feel like is under attack.
And you know what's sad? I'm not going to pretend that I am an immigrant and that I came to this country. No, I'm not going to pretend I am, but my family is.
Yeah.
My family is a generation of immigrants who were escaping poverty and political persecution. I mean, my grandfather came into this country in 1949 after his island in Greece was occupied by the Nazis. The island was unoccupied, okay? He grew up in this farm in the middle of the Aegean Sea. He comes into America barely knowing any English, becomes a carpenter, able to raise 4 kids, and then each one of those 4 kids is able to have children and then send those children to great universities and have amazing jobs and become a part of this great American mosaic story here. So when he goes off and he attacks immigrants, I just view it as he's attacking all of my ancestors who came before me. He's attacking the reason that I'm here today. He's stopping the next generation of me's from growing up and becoming a part of this country. And it's disgusting that so many people believe in that. And it's more sad to me that I see other people who are a part of these same communities that are comfortable with this.
Yes.
I see other people in the Italian community and the Greek community and the Irish community who are happy with the anti-immigrant sentiment.
Into it.
And it's like, guys, the largest single lynching in American history was against Italian people. This is our story too. This is our story. And what we're doing is we're shutting the door on the people who are coming after us.
Yeah.
Out of selfishness.
Yeah.
Out of selfishness, out of blatant selfishness.
Yeah. And that, but even like the American idea, it's one of the things in my head, but it's less of the reason. Like I don't think the threat to the American idea is a direct threat to my life.
Yeah.
And yet I think that there is a lot that this administration proposes that will be a direct threat to my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frightening. And yet weirdly, like a huge part of the reason that I at least believe Trump gets elected is because government has been good enough that it hasn't, like, people don't notice it.
Yeah.
And so
true.
people haven't had to worry or like concern themselves about how they vote or really who wins. And people are kind of jaded by that. Like, they think that politics doesn't matter, and they're even more jaded because people like us and liberals who are always so fearful because we are sensitive to the actual stakes that a candidate like Donald Trump poses.
Yes.
We are anxious. We're frightened when we talk about this. We're animated, and we're it's not easygoing. It's not like Joe Rogan on a podcast.
It's not a joke. It's not a meme. It's not.
But that's part of what gives them energy, right? Because like it's so much easier to shit on the libs when this is how we're like, when we're all wound up and we care and it hurts us, but you can just laugh it off and treat it as a joke. Like, of course you kind of want to be on that side. I'm literally describing the cool kid in school
Yes.
and the nerd in school.
Yes, that's how it feels. A really great example of this. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but my parents are Trump supporters, and they will be collecting Social Security in 7 years. And one of the big things that scares me about the Donald Trump administration is his plan to go through with so many tax cuts that directly impact the longevity of Social Security. And so by 2031, if everything Trump wants to do gets done, Social Security benefits will be reduced by 30%. By 2031. That would be devastating for my parents. That would be terrible for them. I know this burden is on me. That is something I have to deal with, that I know. And I also know that Donald Trump and his economic plan is directly against their interest in a secure retirement.
Yeah.
But they don't care, and they voted for him anyway because they never heard that his plan would reduce it by 30%.
And if they were to hear it,
they
wouldn't
believe
you, and they would roll their eyes at you thinking that you were superior
Yes.
and more knowledgeable than them about the issue.
They're going to say, "Oh, you think you're smarter than me?"
Yeah.
And then I just have to say enough. I just walk away because there's
Yeah.
nothing I can say to them.
Or you can say, yes, I do. And they're like, oh, fuck off.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I understand. I actually understand the liberal elite problem that the left has.
Sure.
I get it.
But the problem is it's real.
But it's real.
Like the liberals, like the elites tend to be liberal, and it's hard for people who when you are smarter or you are more informed, you're also aware of being informed, and you kind of like whether you're pretending to be equally informed as the person that you're trying to teach, or you're talking down to them because they're less informed than you, neither one works.
Yes. Neither one works.
So we don't. I mean, and this is where we can zoom out a little bit about the Democratic strategy. It's like, what is the solution?
I think this is.
How do you dumb it down?
How do you dumb it down? Well, actually, I have an answer to that question, but I'm not going to go there yet. I'm going to start with Kamala Harris's campaign.
Okay.
I don't think she did a bad job for the majority of the campaign.
Sure.
I think she did a bad job in the last month and a half of the campaign that she was running.
Okay.
I think when she came out of the gate, she came out of the gate strong. I think when she came to the DNC and she had that convention, I think that was very, very inspiring. I think she tried to propose some economic policies that would benefit the American people. Okay, that's what she tried to do. And then she also tried to couple that with Donald Trump is a threat to your women's reproductive freedom, and then couple that with Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And she tried to bundle this whole thing up into a package. And I guess my biggest concern is that her economic plans didn't inspire a vision.
There's like no headline to the package.
No. Is it awesome that she wants to do a $50,000 tax credit to small businesses? Yes. Is it awesome she wants to do a $6,000 child tax credit for her first year, $3,600 each year after that? Yes, that's awesome. But It's not inspiring to talk about tax incentives.
Like, what does it mean? Like, what is the core of it?
Yes. Give me your values.
Yeah.
Give me what you're going to fight for. Give me who you're going to fight against. And then this is the other answer. Donald Trump is very, very, very good at pointing at somebody who doesn't look like you, who you think is different from you, and saying, it's their fault. Oh, you lost your job? It's not your fault. It's the brown guy's fault who came over the border trying to make a better life for his daughter. It's that guy's fucking fault, okay? And he's very good at pointing that finger. Democrats aren't doing that with anyone or anything, and they're not identifying the enemy here. And there is an enemy. The enemy is consolidated capital, a business community and a corporate community that has been taking advantage of the American worker for 40, 50 years.
But we were talking before about how, like, is there a risk with this message of vilifying the billionaires and the rich because that's so aspirational for many people?
I totally get that, and there might be, but FDR was able to tout that line. And
Bernie was able to do it well.
Bernie was, but FDR, I think, did it better because he was able to differentiate between something called, he was able to differentiate between like the good billionaire and the speculator, the guy who made money off of money, the guy who ripped you off. And that is the person that the Democratic Party should be rallying against because Donald Trump is that speculator. Donald Trump is the one that wasn't renting his buildings to black people because they were black. Donald Trump is the one that gave massive tax cuts to corporations, which those corporations use to buy back their own stock and make all their buddies at the top rich. Where is that rhetoric from the Democratic Party? And that is what was frustrating me because I kept waiting for it. And I think I was in denial and I was projecting that feeling onto Kamala the whole time. But she did not do a good enough job of coming out swinging against the business and corporate community and the speculators that have been damaging the American public for so long.
Well, I feel like she was also advised and she strategized to have a positive campaign.
Yeah.
Like to try to say what she's going to do instead of what she's fighting against. And then when she didn't do that, the criticism was against her not doing that. So to me, I don't know. Like I don't know if attack mentality or attacking rhetoric, offensive rhetoric works out of her mouth. I think that's where you get down to like the individual candidate. And I don't and how they sound when they talk, the way that they specifically kind of deliver the insults.
I almost feel bad Monday morning quarterbacking her right now, to be honest, because she didn't have an easy task.
Sure, no.
But this, I don't
know. I don't know if I see it as her fault.
Yeah,
I don't know what an alternative would have been.
I agree with you, and it's not actually her fault. And I think that's actually one of the main points here. Is it's about a larger shift in American politics right now, where people don't trust anyone or anything. They don't trust any institution, any newspaper, any study, any scientist. They trust nothing but the demented ramblings of one man, Donald Trump.
I don't even with Trump though, right? Some people do just trust Trump, but a lot of people specifically say he's not actually going to do that. Right? They don't think he's going to deliver it. That's why I think it's all vibes, because vibes aren't dependent on information. They're not dependent on newspapers or like facts.
It's just vibes.
It's just vibes.
It's just vibes.
And so that's why I feel like the Democrats can only fight back with vibes of their own. And the problem with Kamala is she wanted the vibes to be joy and to be joyful, and it's probably partly on us. I don't know how much credit we gave to the joyful vibes. I know we've called out Kamala ourselves for sounding scripted before.
Yeah.
But like they were forced.
They were forced.
They were a calculation like done in a DNC lab that's like, you know what? Our surveys say that people want to feel a little bit more optimistic about the direction of the country.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess, I'm going to come in. Hold on. If the Democrats want to remain relevant, okay, and win back the White House in 4 more years, they have to develop more relationships with people other than suburban women and college kids, because that's not a winning coalition that's going to be enough to carry the country. It's just not. It's just not going to be enough. There aren't enough people
So
in
you're
those
saying
groups. Men. You have to go after men. You have to make a better connection to rural America. You have to. The Democratic Party needs to get back into rural America and explain, or at least try to make the argument to these people who probably haven't heard the Democratic argument against corporations in 40 years.
I just don't know if that's true. Again, like, I know that there has been outreach in this election cycle in going to rural areas to try to narrow some of the margins that Trump has built up. To be like, look, this is the biggest pro-union administration that we've ever seen.
Oh,
stuff like that.
We have to
right?
talk about that.
We can talk about that. But really quick, I want to first say, are you worried at all that, because a big part of, I think, Trump's rhetoric that resonates with people and gets him so many male voters is how offensive he is. Like, it is specifically the remarks not only against immigrants but also the misogynistic remarks, right? The other racist remarks. It is him being rude or homophobic or whatever it is.
Right. That's the point.
That's the point. Is there any Democrat that or can a Democrat toe the line between still being like can they still have the vibes if they don't have that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I think this calls into a big question of Joe Biden's presidency. I believe that Joe Biden had one of the most successful presidencies of the last 50 years. He was able to pass some of the biggest pieces of legislation that will impact our lives in the decade to come. He laid the groundwork of a fight against climate change, which is now all but surrendered with the Donald Trump administration, but he laid down that fight. He created a new industrial policy for the first time in American history in like 40-something years. He expanded the social welfare state by putting more people onto the Obamacare healthcare coverage. A lot of that is going to be going away. And he also expanded the rights of unions, and this is what I wanted to get to. He expanded the rights of unions. He ran on passing the Protect the Right to Organize Act. He was the first president to walk the picket line with the United Auto Workers. And none of that mattered. Union people, union households still went to Trump.
It didn't matter for the vote. It helped their lives. They got
helped
the raises.
Their lives. They got the raises, and then they didn't vote for the Democratic ticket. Now, what that tells me is, again, there is something more to the electorate than deliverism. And what I mean by deliverism, I mean by delivering your policies, because Joe Biden delivered for those unions.
Oh yeah, I would argue that deliverism plays almost no role.
It plays almost nothing. The results of Joe Biden's presidency played zero result into this election result. That is tragic. We are talking about a president who bailed out the Teamsters' pensions. The Teamsters' pensions were going to go broke. Joe Biden, through the American Rescue Plan, bailed them out, and then they didn't even endorse them.
Yeah.
And the Teamsters membership did not vote for Joe Biden.
This is the takeaway. Again, it just goes back to the vibes. Like, I don't know. I mean, we can try to dig into why it's vibes more, whether it's the changing media environment, the fact that like more people watch Rogan than like MSNBC and Fox and all the shit combined. But maybe it will change if a Trump presidency is catastrophic. But we also hope that isn't the case.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Like we desperately hope for him to be successful.
I do not want Donald Trump to do the 20% tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want him to do that and then damage our livelihoods, your livelihoods. I don't want him to go up and round up 13 million illegal immigrants, cratering the Wisconsin dairy market economy, and destroying families and people across the country. Think about all the immigrants who have citizens who are parents of citizens to the United States, their children. Are we going to separate them? Or are we can't legally deport U.S. citizens. Are we going to separate that family? Yeah. What is his plan there? He doesn't know, and he doesn't have one. He doesn't care, because also Donald Trump wants to end birthright citizenship. He wants to get rid of that part of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is very, very explicitly clear that you are born on the soil of America, then you are an American. He wants to get rid of that. And, sorry, the I was going off about something. I was going off about how I don't want him to do these things because it will negatively impact all of our lives. Okay, I don't want him to be a train wreck. I don't want him to be a disaster. I want him to be this center-right government
Who's like strong in the world stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be strong on the world stage. That'll talk real tough to all of our enemies abroad. That maybe boost up our military. Like, I'm comfortable with the center-right government that's gonna, increase our military spending, maybe that's gonna bring us more debt by lowering corporation taxes and lowering taxes on the rich. Like, I'm willing to eat that for 4 years, but I'm not willing to eat 13 million people losing their livelihood by getting shipped out of this country. I'm not willing to accept that. It's devastating to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, devastating to them, but also devastating to us and the wider economy,
as people
and
who care,
you, and like people, but also our personal lives.
Yes,
I
don't want to be personally affected.
I don't want to virtue signal and just speak to like what right and wrong, but like we're talking about hardcore like personal interest.
Yeah, look, there are two ways to think about
those are
this.
at stake.
There are empathetic reasons for why you can be against all these things. There are also deep economic reasons that are directly affected by these types of anti-immigrant rhetoric that Donald Trump wants to do nationwide. I want to go back to the notion of you wanting to leave the country.
And I don't want to leave the country. I will probably bitch out and not do it, and not even think about it that seriously, because what I really care about more than anything is my community, my friends, and being around friends and family. But I fear for what we're about to endure. Like we talked about the economic impacts of deporting a ton of people, of the tariffs. We haven't even mentioned Elon Musk's proposal to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget.
And to think about that, he also says to cut that $2 trillion, he doesn't want to touch veterans benefits, Social Security, or Medicare. So in order to cut $2 trillion out of the budget, which is $6 trillion every year, he would have to cut 67% of every government department, including the military. That's not going to happen.
It's impossible. And so it means he's not going to do that. But say it's $1 trillion. Say it's whatever, like hundreds of billions, right? Like the shock effect. Again, we're talking Argentina type of stuff.
Yes.
With the shock effect that it's going to have on the economy. And this is where I'm trying to come from with my personal interest, right? Like, I am honestly scared about what happens to my life and to the people that I love because of policy. And this is why it was so good for politics to be boring.
Yes.
Because I never had to worry about this before.
No, it was so... Dude, honestly, I am going to miss the days of reading the decisions from Joe Biden's EPA.
Yes.
I am going to miss those days, man, because those days are over.
Yeah.
We are on a whole different beast now.
We have entered a new timeline, and I really feel like we have 4 years to see if the American experiment continues.
Yeah.
The country's not going to break up. The borders aren't going to change.
No.
The question is just whether the whole ideal that was set out during the revolution by the founders in the formation of the country, if our institutions are kind of strong enough to maintain that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be tested.
They're going to be tested. They're going to be tested because Donald Trump is going to do everything he can to centralize power inside of the executive branch. He's made it explicitly clear.
Yep.
He wants to fire 50,000 civil servant agents, okay? Yep. And then rehire 50,000 loyal servants to not the country, not civil servants, Trump servants.
I very much expect that to be a day one thing.
I expect that to be a day one thing. He will do mass layoffs inside of the government. And you can expect the market to react not fondly to that, but screw the market.
But for some reason, the market's reacting fondly today as if it expects him to not do that.
I know. But that also gives me hope. I think maybe a lot of these business guys think that Donald Trump's going to get in there and they're going to be able to puppet master him into being a center-right little Mitt Romney clone.
Okay. Okay.
But I could be wrong. I think Donald Trump could very well. He surrounded himself with the most radical people from his prior administration, right? Now Stephen Miller is his best buddy, which Stephen Miller is one of the most disgusting people I have ever seen and seen talk, okay? He gave a speech at the MSG rally, and he said, Americans is for America and Americans only. This is not the party of Ronald Reagan, who said that it doesn't matter if you move to Germany, you can't become a German. It doesn't matter if you move to Japan, you can't be Japanese, but anybody can be America. Not to Stephen Miller, not to Donald Trump, because if you're not an American right now, you're not an American, and you're never going to be an American, because America is for Americans only.
Yeah.
That's what they believe. That's what America First means. That's what these racist people believe. And that's who America just voted in as president.
Yes. And that's another part of the thought about moving. Because, like, this is what we can't really deny what we have become now
This is
as a
who
country.
we are.
Yes.
This is not an aberration. This is not 2016 turns out was not just a hatred of Hillary Clinton. It was a hatred of a lot of other people too.
Yeah. Well, people and the other things that we've talked about. But yes,
Right, and the
like
other things,
the
and the
bigotry,
corporation
the
and all
bigotry is an absolute part of it. I'm almost curious to see, like, one of the things I've read this morning is that there will be an effect as far as how other nations look at us, to see that after January 6th, we still elected Trump with as strong of a mandate here as we did. This is something that I'm honestly curious about, that I can talk about neutrally and not totally fearfully. What is it going to look like now? Like, how are our international relationships going to, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting.
Do they want us to be, like, does the liberal West want
Yeah.
to be doing business with us now? Besides the fact that they need our military?
Are we now going to become in the bloc of Hungary and Serbia and Russia and China? Is that going to, well, not China, but is that going to be our bloc? It seems that we are now at odds with the greater Western liberal world here. And that's not good for us.
To me, the truth is probably more likely to be something like India, the non-aligned, right? I don't think there's just not much interest for us. There's not much self-interest. I think that even Trump or anyone in his administration would be like, oh, let's buddy up with Putin.
No,
he might admire him.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really help us.
No, I think you're right. The
So
answer
just
is a
gonna
not
abandon-
aligned thing. Just
abandon the allies.
just abandon it. You know, NATO, it's not that important anymore.
Exactly.
The Soviet Union's gone. European Union relationships. Europe is a dying continent anyway.
Exactly.
We don't need them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way American foreign policy is going. And I think that's the way a lot of Americans want the foreign policy to go.
Yes. And so
right?
we're finally going to see what a truly, since World War II, what a truly isolationist America looks like.
Yeah, I believe that. I also think that there's, what about, how do you feel about this comment here? Does this victory for Donald Trump imply an endorsement of his policies? Are they equivalent? No, right? And so that is something that gives me hope and frustration, because when I was reacting to the election results, the Fox News exit poll asked the question, for those who are living here illegally, do you want them deported or to give them a pathway to citizenship? 53% of people said that they want a pathway to citizenship.
That's crazy.
That is the opposite of how the country voted. The country gave a mandate to a man that does not care if you have a job, that does not care if you have a spouse of an American citizen, does not care if your child is an American citizen. He will kick you out.
Yep.
And somehow America voted for that guy while having the opposite political opinion.
Yeah.
What do we do with that? I mean, how do we talk about politics? What do we do? What are we doing here where we are having conversations about policies and then they are going into the voting booth and voting the opposite of what they believe on policy?
Yeah, it does kind of call into question the idea of our show.
Yes.
Right.
The entire point of this show was to go deep and talk about the news that is kind of boring.
Yeah, and to learn about how it affects the world.
Yes. Like, we wanted to learn about the CHIPS Act. Where did the money from the CHIPS Act get spent? Where did the money from the Inflation Reduction Act get spent? What are the effects of Joe Biden's EPA changes? What are the effects of these National Labor Relations Board decisions? All those little stories in your newspaper that you never really read. What does that mean for you 2, 3, 4 years from now?
Yes.
That's what we were curious about. Well, guess what, guys? We heard. You don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't give a shit.
You just don't care.
Yeah.
And then it makes me feel like an idiot, because why do I care? Why do I care so much about union rights and union organizing when the Teamsters and the Mirror membership vote against union organizing?
But I think you're okay because it does actually matter. And that's the thing. When we talk about these things, we're like, yeah, this is actually going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to help in
Yes.
X, Y, or Z way.
Makes me very, very happy when the Federal Trade Commission under Lena Khan took some serious action and went on against those corporate greed, right?
Yes, because one is that, like, yes, maybe this affects our life in 2 to 3 or 4 years, but also we have some kind of vision
Yes.
for what we think this country should be.
I totally agree with you.
And it feels like a win to make steps in advancing towards that vision.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating when I think people that should be on my side, who I am fighting with,
Or at least
alongside,
four. At least fighting
four reject that policy.
Yeah.
But it's even more frustrating when they agree with the policy.
Yeah,
but then
it's not even that they're rejecting the policy. They
'cause
reject the politician.
Right, because if you ask the Teamsters, are you pro passing the PRO Act, they will say yes.
Yeah.
And then they will not vote for Kamala Harris, even
Yes.
though she's the only president besides Joe Biden who had ever insinuated in passing a labor relations act that strong since FDR with the Wagner Act in 35. Okay. And so that is just a huge, listen, there's two things there. Okay. You have to put some agency on the voter. You have to put some.
Oh, a lot.
You have to put some. Okay. People are going to get mad if you say a lot.
I don't give a shit.
Good. But you have to blame the messenger too, because the messenger should be able to break through that bullshit. And Kamala Harris was not the messenger who was able to do that. And I don't know who was. I'm not saying it's me. I'm not saying it's you. I'm not saying it's Barack Obama. I don't know who it is. But somebody needs to be able to break through that message and expose the Republican Party for the fraudulent piece from the fraud that they are.
Yeah.
And no, I don't know a politician right now who can do that effectively.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It does feel like the firewall kind of that Republican voters put up in front of them is rock solid.
It's
right
rock
now.
solid, and it's all cultural based. And I think what's happening right now is a lot of these union guys and a lot of these middle class workers, a lot of these urban workers, they are voting more on cultural issues than on economic interest issues.
Yeah.
And yeah, they go into the voting booth and they say that economy is their number one issue and it's inflation, but really it's related to immigration.
Well, we were talking about this the other day, that like I think that these exit polls are hard to even interpret a lot of the time if it's like, what's your number one issue? Because people have just kind of learned what issues they're supposed to say, right? Like they've heard, oh, the economy, that's a valid thing to be concerned about. Like everyone says the economy is bad. Let's say that's my main issue.
But then we go and we had Fox News and CNN going at the same time last night. We were watching the election, and we turned on Fox News for a little bit. We unmuted it, and she's going off about how Kamala Harris never made a strong stance against trans people in sports.
Yes.
You know how many trans kids there are in sports in high school across the country? 400. Who cares? It's 400 kids trying to live their lives.
And then again, this is why it's just vibes, because it's
just
easy
vibes.
to laugh at a trans person.
It's just easy to laugh at a trans kid.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's just easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to blame all of your problems on a trans kid who has no one to speak for them. It's easy to blame all your problems on a brown person who just came into this country. It's easy to blame all your problems on a liberal elite like me that you've never met, that you think looks down on you
Exactly.
for being in the middle of the country and hates you, which I don't, and I don't know why you think we do.
I promise you, we don't give nearly enough of a shit about you to hate you. It's true. Yeah. Again, this is how people need to be talked to, I think.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Let's
I don't know.
know.
I mean, like, one of the things that actively gets me sad, okay,
Sure.
is because this shit does get me sad.
Yeah.
Right. Donald Trump was the first president in American history to oversee an uptick in Americans who don't have health insurance. He was the first president to oversee that. He's about to become the second. Okay. Because Donald Trump, maybe he won't totally repeal Obamacare, but J.D. Vance has made it explicitly clear that he wants to lessen the restrictions of these private health insurance companies and allow these private health insurance companies to make intergenerational risk pools, which means young people can be pooled with young people and old people can be pooled with old people.
So old people's premiums go up.
Old and young people's premiums go down. Hell yeah, brother. I don't have to pay for Social Security for seniors anymore, and I don't have to pay for senior health care anymore. You get to live in poverty, and you get sick in poverty. That's great. Great job, seniors, for voting for that way. You know, and that's what blows my mind. But they don't know.
No.
They don't don't know that.
No.
They don't know that that's what he's talking about. Well,
No.
but it's like literally, even though he said it on the debate stage, he said that explicitly against Tim Walz. And Tim Walz even said that he's trying to explain, but it doesn't matter because Republicans lie and Democrats lie and everybody just lies.
It makes me sad too.
It makes me so frustrated.
Yeah.
But this is okay. There are different types of meaning of what it means to be an American, okay?
Okay.
I've been alluding to this idea that to be a German, you have to have German blood, okay? But to be an American, you don't have to have that American blood. There's no such thing. Our blood comes from all over the place. It is a thick, red, murky water, okay? We are alone in that regard in the world of having that type of relationship with each other. Before the American Revolution, the British people were tied to each other through their relationship to the Crown of England. And that was their relationship. They were all like the sons and daughters of a paternal crown. And that is what tied the nation together. When the founding fathers decided to rip those bonds apart, they had to replace them with something. And what they decided to replace them with was the idea of civic virtue and the love not for a crown that you hardly see, but the love for one another that you see every day. And that was the point of America. And today, we have demagogues in this country that are doing their darndest to tear apart those strings of love and compassion and civility that have tied us together for generations. We haven't been perfect. We've been a racist nation for the majority of our history. Only since 1965 have we become even a imperfect democracy with the passage of the Voting Rights Act, okay? Since that point, we have tried every decade, every year to move on, to be better, to strengthen the ties of love and civility. And now we have this demagogue who is blatantly trying to pluck them away, strip us of our relationships.
Replace it with himself.
Replace.
And for anyone who doesn't want to be part of the network that is centered around him, cast them out.
It is just like the Crown of England. He is trying to make the relationship to one another central on your relationship to him and your loyalty to him and your loyalty to the party and the MAGA movement and his and everything. The liberals have a different view of what this country means, right? The liberals say this country has no blood. This country has no crown. We are only an idea.
But the problem is that this message won't resonate, right? Like
Clearly.
Like the liberals, we can't. We're a nation of people who are sitting on their phones and scrolling YouTube Shorts.
Yes.
Right. We're not a nation of people who's trying to lift up
You had
the
to
other
pick
people
YouTube
around
Shorts
us.
out of all of them.
Exactly. But that's why. I don't know. It's just another example of like people are the preachiness. I'm not trying to shit on you.
No, it's
but
fine.
like it's
Shit
not,
on me.
It just doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't resonate with people's real lives.
Yes.
The fact is we have become further like apart. We've become more divided, even in our day to day, in how much we isolate ourselves in our own bubbles.
Yes.
Right. And so it doesn't like even if maybe we believe in a country that again is based on the ties between each other as fellow men and women, but that's supposedly been the ideology for a century, right?
Right.
And we've only overseen the deterioration of that.
Yes. As long as I have been alive, it has been a deterioration of this national unity. There has been no moment, for as long as I have been alive, where this nation has come around and felt unified.
Yeah.
I have never lived that America.
Exactly.
I don't know that America. That America is alien to me. That America is as alien to me as an alien. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is devastating. But why I won't leave is I'm not giving up. I ain't fucking leaving. That's how I feel. I won't.
So here's where I would want to wrap it up. Then.
Yeah.
I get that.
Let's
You
wrap
want
it
to
up.
fight for it.
Let's wrap it up.
What actually does it? We talk about these policies, and most of the policies we talk about are still about individual freedom, individual prosperity, or like you can argue family level prosperity, right? In terms of we want to support unions so that people are more secure in their livings and they make a better living. We want healthcare to take care of individual people. We want abortion rights, to give more rights to individuals. But like we don't have or think about policies to like bond people together more closely.
We don't.
So maybe that's a new project.
Maybe that's a new project. How do we bond people closer together? How do we rectify the lack of community?
Yes. How do we recreate or maybe create? Maybe this is where the Make America Great Again thing starts to resonate, right? Maybe this is the thing that we've lost, that we've actually gotten worse in over time.
Yeah.
Maybe we can create or recreate some kind of fabric, so stronger social fabric that can actually take the place of this national identity that we're so worried about losing. I don't know. We'll see.